back and forth. It was kind of iffy for a while what was going to happen. And Richard jumped in the race because he didn't see anybody worth a flip and was running against Wicker. As you all well know, that you know, a lot of these guys like Harper and Wicker started out as conservative, and Reagan was around. All of a sudden, like this lady said, they kind of turned into rhinos all of a sudden. And I have a sneaky suspicion it's probably a lot to do with our former governor having influence over some of these guys. The platform I agree with is freedom of religion, infringement upon the Constitution, immigration, free market economy, civil rights and term limits is what it stands for, is what his platform is. Now, let me read my little background on Richard here. Thank goodness for cell phones, and you can take pictures now of things. And let me turn this around. All right, so it's at 18 years of age, like a lot of folks during that time, I guess he ran off and joined the military. He was trudging through the jungles of Vietnam with the 101st, and I understand not only was he with the 101st, he was with the 82nd at one time. So that's not many people I've known that have been with both of them. During which time that he was awarded the Purple Heart as well as numerous other decorations. After finishing his service in the military, he decided to own his own business, and he's been a businessman for a number of years, and with the Boyanton family. He said, my father was a businessman and inventor and held several patents to his name. He, along with my brothers and sisters and myself, started the only publication in the fencing industry at the time, which we later sold, following in his family's footsteps. He says he's got a patent on his name and is currently the owner of two small businesses, Scott Fence Company and Boyanton Industries. He goes through some of his platform, what he stands for, but I want to introduce Richard Boyanton as maybe hopefully our next senator for the state of Mississippi. Come on.
I want to give you a little bit about who I am and what I am. Last year, I realized I could no longer vote for Senator Wicker. I had voted for him 6 years ago, or however many years, but his platforms and what he was doing was so liberal that I could not take it. I told my wife, I said, well, we'll see who's running against Senator Wicker and to find me a candidate. So in January, about 2 in the morning, I couldn't sleep, so I got up and I'm watching TV and I'm listening to things and I'm thinking, you know, there's nobody going to run against this man. I believe that the Republican Party got together and, realizing that Wicker was weak with his liberal voting, decided nobody should run against him, and so nobody ran. When I put my name in the deal to run, there was not a soul saying they were going to run against Senator Wicker. McDaniel came in the last day and lasted a couple of weeks and got out. But I had to run at that point in time to make a difference. I have grandkids and great-grandkids. My great-grandkids are going to inherit a failed nation. We're talking about giving money to foreign governments that are coming from a deficit spending. That's ridiculous to me. How can you give money that you don't have? How are you going to take it from your grandkids? We are going to survive. We will die before the money's gone, most of us. But ask Venezuela, ask the Soviet Union, ask Red China. Socialist doesn't work, and that's where we're headed. We went from $5 trillion from 1776 to 1995. That is 219 years, $5 trillion. From 1995, when Senator Wicker became a congressman, to 2018, we're at $21 trillion. If this man gets elected again, we'll be at $30 trillion before the 6 years is up. How can anybody call themselves a conservative if you're not conservative? I mean, you have to. I tell people all the time, whether I believe in the state flag or not believe in the state flag has nothing to do with it. I believe in the state flag and I voted for it. But the people of Mississippi voted for it. The law of the land says it's our flag. If you don't like it, move to Alabama. You know, I don't care what you don't like anymore. Another thing, when you get to Washington, D.C., the word no means that you're not going to vote for something. No, I'm not voting for a $1.3 trillion deficit to give my grandkids. I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not going to vote to raise the debt limit 14 times. No, I'm not going to do it until I can at least have my staff read it. You know, I'm not going to sit down and read 2,300 pages of $1.3 trillion deficit. But we have staff. They have staff. They pay people thousands of dollars. Why would you sign a mortgage or a used car salesman before you see it? You're going to believe the used car salesman? Holy no. You know, believing in God. We were in one deal over here, and you ought to see the people when I asked, could we pray? You know, we would pray around the deal. I had my grandson say a prayer, so we said a prayer around it. You know, we can't care what other people think. They want Mississippi to fail. They want Southern heritage to fail. They want America to fail. They do not care one iota about this country. Look at California. They're taking Lincoln and Washington out and making it a May Day. A May Day? What's the matter with Lincoln and Washington? I predict if we don't put a line in the sand and say Mississippi is going to protect our flag, we're going to protect our statues, we're going to protect our Southern heritage, the devil with you. And we have to be forceful with it. We can't stand back like puppets and march to the sheep going over the cliff. I'm not a sheep walker. I walked in Vietnam at 18, not because I had to. People were going to Canada. I hitchhiked to Memphis, Tennessee from Picayune because my dad wouldn't sign me up at 17 because he said a war was going on. But I always believed that I was supposed to do it. From a little boy, I thought I was supposed to do it. So my uncle signed me up. A few weeks after 18, I'm in Vietnam. I get wounded. I get malaria. I come home to the worst VA and the worst hospital system in the whole world. I sweated so much that I had a puddle of water. My only saving grace was my wife, and she was 16. She saved my life. She taught me more than any person in the world. This shows you what happens when you have a good wife. But we have to quit letting people lead us. It's nothing wrong to say, no, I'm not doing that. No, you're not going to do this. We were at a deal over here, and the lady called me. I'm going to take a drink of water. The lady called me a traitor. And I said, a traitor? I said, yes. Josh, next time open this water. My mouth gets dry. I have a little heart pill and it dries my mouth out. But I'm not dying. But again, we have to care. We have to take a torch. Somebody has to lead. We have to have somebody that's leading. When I was at WLOX, I don't know if any of y'all saw that. I told them, you know, California's not obeying federal law. Illinois, New Jersey, Colorado's growing pot. None of these countries. And when I said at WLX, it was a Doug and Joan or Doug and Dave. And I said, well, you know what I'm for? I said, I'm for putting the 10 Commandments back up in school, up at the courthouse. I'm running to bring prayer back. And the Dave guy says, Mr. Boyanton, you can't say that. You're running for a federal program. You're a senator. I said, well, thank you for reminding me. I said, again. He said, no, I want you to talk about federal things. I said, okay, I'll do it. But again, we are being stopped everywhere because we're told what Mississippi can't do. We can do anything we want to. If these other states can do it, why can't we bring prayer back to school? Why can't we demand that if you got a Muslim and you want to say a prayer, go in the back of the room and do it? I don't care. But we should bring our Christianity back to school, back to our courthouses, back to our lives, for our kids. And spending, Mrs. Dunn was a good lady, but spending money that we're making a deficit on, you'll get not $1 from me. I don't believe that we send, if we get above deficit spending where we have money left over, I don't mind us spending it. But how can you borrow money to give to other people? I don't understand that logic. You know, you're making a big loan. I told a crowd the other day, the $1.3 trillion that we signed up for Mississippi, we got, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats got most of the hog, we got the oink. But we got our signature on $1.3 trillion of debt. In other words, we have got pennies from that dollar. They've got most of the money. And here we are with the whole $1.3 trillion part of our debt. If I took that thing and started looking at what Mississippi gets, we have $5 million going to the catfish farm to inspect catfish coming from China. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I don't know that much about catfish. It just seems like a lot of money to me. How could you go from 1 million to 5 million? If that's, there must be some reason for that. And I see it politically. I don't see it as something that's good. There's lots of things in that 1.3 trillion, if you start breaking it down, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like stupid people got together, or Harvard graduates, one of the two, I don't know which. But again, we have to quit taking their word. You know, when you take somebody's word, it's got to be from somebody that's telling you and following the line. You can't take your word. You know, how can you vote 14 times to raise the debt ceiling? You know, what is the debt ceiling for? To keep the debt down. So if you raise it 14 times, why have it? Just say we don't have a debt ceiling. We don't need to vote on it. But again, we, the people, we're in charge of this. There comes a point in time where we can say we're not going to take anymore. And I tell people, I get people mad at me all the time. I had a lady up here when I talked about abortion. Well, you know, it's a woman's body. I said, well, you know, we own our body. I said, nobody owns anything. We all are part of everything. But when you start talking about the difference between, and I was called stupid because I didn't know the difference between a fetus and a baby. I told them, in my mind, a fetus is a baby. I give a behind about a fetus being this and that. A fetus is a baby. Whether you like it or not, it's a baby. You don't pull it apart and kill it. So other than that, I've got a lot of things I could talk with, but I know that y'all have other things to do too. And I really, really like it that you've taken your time to come up here and hear me speak. Yes, sir.
You take questions.
Yes, sir. I'll take questions. Yes, sir.
I know that you're aware that you're running against a fellow that either through ignorance or greed got caught up in this Ponzi scheme. Now, is that who we want to send to Washington?
You know, I told a man the other day, I said, his spending, I've spent $50,000, he spent $700,000 from a man that's no name whatsoever. He had never mentioned my name in public. I don't think he's ever mentioned my name in public. And he spent $700,000, but not a dime of that money is his. The same thing with the Ponzi scheme. I doubt if any of the money was his, so it probably didn't mean that much except his name got caught up into it and got it in the newspaper. I don't think that if you make bad decisions that good things happen from you. You know, bad decisions are made when you're making bad decisions all the time. We all can make a mistake. But his voting record, my goodness, how can you call yourself? I get really agitated when I go to crowds that are Wicker people, and I can see they're looking at me and they're cringing. You know, I said, how can you call yourself a conservative when you don't have any conservative values? I don't mind you calling yourself a Wicker supporter, but don't call yourself a conservative. You're as far from conservative as Obama is. You know, and it just really agitates me how you can, you got to believe in something. You know, I tell my kids every morning, my daughter come up to me, and she's 13 years old. And you know, she was going to a dance, a company dance. And she said, Dad, I'm probably going to fail because there's girls that are so much better. I said, babe, you see your dad? I go out every day. When I go out there, I realize I can fail. I can say the wrong thing. I'm not a politician. I'm not polished. But I go out and I say what I feel. And you don't have to say other things if you say what's the truth and what you feel. You go out there and you feel what you're doing, do the best you can, and hope that people will give you a chance. And that's what I feel. I feel you don't. When I talk to crowds, whether you like me or don't, I want you to know 100% where I stand. Because the idea of somebody coming up here and wanting me to vote for something to raise the taxes, I think there's lots of things we can do. I would love to see Social Security pay our elderly more money. I think if we can close down for one thing we can pay them more money with by closing down the earned income credit. The earned income credit is the most, it steals money from America. I mean, one house had something like $6 million worth of checks sent to it in San Antonio. You can't, we have all these little bastions of thieves, and we have to close them. We have to have people up there that say, no, I don't care. You know, we have had the worst. I'm to tell you the type of problems I've had getting audiences and stuff that I have to go to Republican events and beg them for 5 minutes. And how can you be a Republican with only one other Republican? Show you how bad the state is owned by Haley Barbour. I'll say it right out loud. Yeah. He can come up and a newspaper can refuse to put an article in. My hometown paper in Hancock, we called him up and gave him an article, what, 3 weeks ago? It's not been put in. He's had 9 articles with Wicker. You know, he gets in my face and he's almost like I call him a hypocrite in my own mind, but he's a nice guy. Well, Mr. Boyanton, I think what you're doing is great. Then you don't put my ad in there, you know. And I paid money to put ads in there. So, you know, it makes you mad. You know, I was paying on my business, the WLOX, $10,000 a month for advertising for my business. It took them 3 weeks to make me be not the other guy. You know, Wicker has another candidate, the other man. Well, dang, I got a name. Maybe somebody will know it. You know, that's not fairness. That is complete ignorance. When you don't even want, am I that dangerous that you can't have me talk to a crowd? You know, am I that dangerous?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. You're that dangerous to them because then it starts deconstructing their house of cards.
If you keep talking like you're doing, you're going to get more dangerous. I hope you do.
Well, I tell you, we went and watched the Morgan Dunn and all of them at the, what was it? In the state Jackson. And you talk about a surprise bunch of people, because the American for Prosperity, which I've gone to a couple of their events, they stand for a lot of good things. They don't stand for anybody except in power. They claim otherwise, but they're only for power. And we were in a little place, in a pizza place in Biloxi, and I met with the American Prosperity. And one guy was talking about, you know, well, I like the idea of testing these people for marijuana or, you know, for drugs, getting food stamps and stuff. And I said, you know, I'm not against that. And he said, well, you know, if they test positive, we should take their money and take their kids. And, you know, I sat there for a second, and there's about 30 people in the room. I said, no, you can't do that. I said, if the family is working and surviving and the state hasn't taken the kids already, if you take the money, the food stamps, and the kids, where are you going to put them? Hancock County is the worst county in the whole state of Mississippi. I have one CASA child boy that I took at 68 years old because he was crying so hard and nobody was going to take him, that I told my wife, let's go ahead and take him. I've raised lots of kids besides my own, so I have a deep heart for this. But you can't take one problem and make it into a bigger problem. You can't take, I can understand trying to get them off the drugs, but you can't take the money that if the kids are living at this point in time, what are you going to do with the kids? What is going to happen? Even if they're not doing the right thing, if the kids are not in the system already, that means they're getting part of the money to eat off of. They have to be eating somehow or they'd be dead. So, but they wouldn't answer me. You know, I asked them, I said, what are you going to do? Put them in a warehouse? You're going to put them in a hotel? You know, my thing is just simple, normal questions. What are you going to do with them? You know, if you're going to make a problem, what are you going to do with that problem you just made? How are you going to fix that? I think that we have to look at there's no reason, you know, I have people tell me all the time, well, you're a Republican, you can't talk about that. I said, I'll talk about anything I want to talk. I believe that my goal in life at 68 years old is to protect my grandkids. And by protecting them, I have to go out here and do things and talk at 68 when I've never done it before in my life. But I love my kids. My business, my life is my grandkids and kids. I have to fight for them. And I will fight for them for the day I die.
Okay, this is gonna be, what we call it, an economics question. All right, you're elected, now you have an opportunity to vote to help, the shipyard get some contracts. But in order for the other senators to vote for that money to flow to Mississippi, you have to agree to vote for the money to the guy in Pennsylvania and Ohio and New York City and so on. How are you gonna handle that?
Well, see, it's a simple question to me, real simple. It's the difference between, do I vote for the country to fail, or do I vote for what I think we need here? When it comes to the difference of the country completely failing, I will always vote against the country failing. I believe that you have to, I think all senators try to get stuff into their district. That's normal. You've got to have some give here or there. That's normal. But you can't give when you're spending trillions of dollars. We're going to be at $30 trillion in 6 years if Wicker's elected. Where does it stop when it doesn't matter what he gets? It don't matter what Mississippi gets because nobody can build a ship because the money's worthless. Venezuela right now, that leader up there, Chavez, he was a great man to those people. He brought all that oil money and all that up there, and everybody had milk and honey. Right now, it's a disaster. You have to be strong sometimes. When you go up there to do something, you have to sometimes when you're buying something. Me and my wife went up there to buy a Escalade Cadillac, $74,000. So you better settle for something a little bit better, babe, because $74,000 I can buy an airplane. You know, you're not getting no Escalade. And so we moved right on down, and she finally got her a $44,000 car, which I still think is high, but at the same time, it's not a $72,000 Escalade. We have to quit thinking about ourselves. And that's the problem we have. We want to think that we can do for ourselves, and we care nothing about the kids. If protecting Mississippi and bringing jobs means that I'm going to do something to cause the country to fail, I'll never do it.
Well, I'll say this, and you just tell me if I'm right or wrong. Mississippi is, like you said, Mississippi's just getting the crumbs. So those guys up in the north, they have a lot more to lose than we do.
Correct.
So the senators down here, if they would hold the line and say, we're not voting for that stuff unless we get the gravy. You're not gonna get all the gravy and we get what's left. I mean, even if you're gonna be a communist, which I'm totally against, and you fought against communism, now we're getting it in this country. But even if you were gonna go with Mississippi, Alabama, the southern delegates could have a lot more if they would hold out, if they would even just fight for us.
You know, I think the thing that you can put in your mind, I tell people all the time, did you notice, what is the Democrats voted on for the Republicans? Anybody can tell me?
Nothing.
$1.3 trillion. As soon as that $1.3 trillion got in there, they signed their name to that so quick. That's the first thing I told Josh when it was signed. I said, you know what? The deal's on. Because the Democrats have signed it with no questions. You know, boom, boom, boom. That tells you right off the bat that we just got cooked. But again, I'm not going to say anything just to get me elected. I'll promise you that. I go back home, I've got my businesses, I don't need a job. What I want is a country. I want to leave my country to my kids, to your grandkids. I want my Southern heritage. I run around as a kid, as a Southern boy. If you don't like the South, move north. Move to Alabama, whoever's got that, but don't take my state and tell me what rules I'm going to follow, because I ain't going to follow them. I won't follow them today, I won't follow them tomorrow, and there's no amount of money that can make it happen. I told another crowd, I've spent every nickel of my money. Every nickel I spend is my money. 100% my money. I've got $200 or $300, $400 worth of money that's been donated to me. But I'm on the road continuously, so I don't work the money as much as I do the road. But I believe when you can spend $700,000 of wasted money of other people that this is completely ludicrous. It's completely out of control. Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying you're self-funded for
Yes.
this? You
I'm
don't-
self-funded except for $400 or $500.
$400-500, so
Yes.
you don't have any PACs or any
No
money
PACs.
coming in from
Nope.
other sources?
No, we have 10 grand my brother's going to put in. We have another man that's going to put in, 5,700 and 5,700, and they're all friends that are going to do it right at the end of the deal so I can do some more stuff.
So
Yes,
you're not beholden to
nobody.
anybody else, so you're gonna be like a Trump, you're gonna be in there draining the swamp with him?
Yes, ma'am. And in fact, we had a people from that was going to want me to come in here and give me a lot of attention to do things, and I turned it down. I'm for my grandkids again. I am for my grandkids. That's what I'm here for. The state of Mississippi and my grandkids and your grandkids. Go ahead.
I have two questions. One, you said I looked up your website, you said you were for term limits.
Yes.
A senator's term is 6 years. How many terms do you think a senator should serve? And how can we possibly get that through when senators and congressmen will be limiting themselves?
See, again, I've found out in business many, many times, when you have impossible situations, you have to come up with impossible solutions. The solution is, if you take a look right now in the Senate and the House, there's enough votes to force term limits. It won't come out of committee, but we can force it by, if we get enough people together, the American people can say, we want it, and we can demand it. Because again, you're not going to get people like Wicker, any of these lifetime politicians to vote themselves out of office. They're not going to do it. But you can make a big enough stink. It's like anything. Even the Democrats do it all the time. When they want something passed, they're relentless. They just keep going until somebody makes a mistake and it gets passed. Term limits is I say it's the easiest equalizer for our country than any one thing. If I went to Congress, Senate, and did one thing, and only one thing I could do, term limits was it, I would save the nation.
Do you think it should be 12 years, 2 terms? Or?
I think 2 terms with the senators and 6 terms with the congressmen, because 6 times 2 is 12.
Another question I had about filibuster. How do you feel about fake filibuster? What the Democrats are doing.
It's again, I think that you have to let the process work itself through and where it goes. Because their beliefs, even as wrong as they are, is still their beliefs. So I think there's nothing that keeps them from giving it. It's just after a period of time, it'll be over. I mean, it's like it always is. But I just don't know. You can't stop the process of that. I just don't see how you can do that. Yes.
Thank you for being here first and foremost, and for your service to the country. You have a great pitch. I like that, as I say, rebellious attitude towards the tyranny of government. My question to you is, how far are you willing to go in promoting what it sounded like was the 10th Amendment, states' rights? We're all big constitutionalists here, and I'm one of the biggest when it comes to the 10th Amendment. I could never be a Californian or Coloradan or Massachusetts person. So, how far? We've got Roe versus Wade. We've got Engel versus Vitale, which outlaws prayer. If Mississippi, by chance, let's say, passed a bill signed by the governor saying we will allow prayer in school, we restrict all abortions in Mississippi, outlaw. Would you be willing to stand up in the Senate and say, I'm standing with Mississippi, they are not going to follow those 2 court rulings because they were illegally made? And you could offer a bill, an amendment, whatnot. But would you stand up for Mississippi if our legislature passed that and said, I'm with Mississippi, we're not going to follow those illegal rules?
See, I would probably lead that besides just standing up for it. I think sometimes, again, we have to take our wars and battles that we see. I believe Mississippi right now is on the verge that could make their own rules. California wants state rights, Colorado wants state rights. In fact, in one of my deals I printed up there, all of these states are doing what Mississippi's wanted all along, make our own rules. You know, and I think putting school prayer back, doing things back to, you know, all of that stuff worked. We didn't have the crime we have now. You know, I had a lady tell me, Mr. Boynton, the school buildings, we need a lot of money. I said, don't tell me about school buildings. Tell me about paying teachers. Because my dad was raised, and all of his family was raised in a one-room school. They all graduated college. They all did the right thing. It had nothing to do with the building. They had one teacher. So don't give me this building stuff. It's nice to have, but we need to work on the teaching end. We need to work on teachers getting it. We need to work on people on retirement getting, you know, the stuff is raising so high that people that I know that live off of Social Security are having a tough time. Some of the old people that don't have any money, it is really, the groceries is just eating their money up. I have a sister that is on it, and I have to bring her stuff all the time. If it wasn't that I had a business and stuff and bring it, she couldn't live. She couldn't pay $500 a month when she gets $600 a month in rent. You know, you can't, we have to do things that make sense. We paid into Social Security. We should get rid of the entitlements that I think we need to go and look at each entitlement and take one at a time and start thinking the ones that we know we don't have to have. You know, I own apartment buildings in Hancock, and every one of them have half their rents paid for at least by the federal government. I mean, I see this as being ridiculous. You know, we have the right to get up and do whatever we want. The government doesn't have the ability to pay all of us this. My sister died. I have another sister that died of cancer. The last month of her death cost the federal government $550,000. How can you afford that kind of money? You know, she had cancer of the throat, cancer of the liver, cancer of the, and they're working on her like a soldier, you know? And I'm thinking, you know, I love my sister to death, you know. I cried for days. But you can't spend $550,000 on a dying person. All of us are going to die at some point in time. But it was just amazing to me how it is. Anybody else got anything? Yes, sir.
You know, I'm not born and bred down here. I'm a carpetbagger from New Jersey. I'm down here sitting. But I'm down here because I'm a conservative. And I agree with the majority of what you're saying. Okay? Because when push comes to shove, I'm in the militia. There ain't nobody messing with my Second Amendment. Okay? And 10th Amendment. That's why I'm down here. I grew up with Chris Smith, and he's been sitting up there in Congress 36 years on the Veterans Affairs Committee doing absolutely nothing. But every time the election comes around, all he has to do is cry he's pro-life, and before it was fashionable, he was against human trafficking. And he gets reelected every time that he's part of the swamp. And I grew up with him, and we used to be friends. And that's how they're getting away with it. But I see a couple of things, and a lot of people in here I've disagreed with before, even though I'm conservative. I was a trumper, not a cruise man. Okay? And I'm against the wall. Because to me, history has proved, going all the way back to Masada with the Romans, that when you put a wall up, you're walling people in, just like they did in East Germany. Just like, you know, the Alamo. We lost at the Alamo. We were walled in. Everywhere there's a wall, you're keeping people in. I'm not for a wall. I am for military technology out into the private sector. We've got enough of it that we can protect the border without putting up a physical wall.
Let me tell you what I think about the wall. There's two things about the wall. We can pick out a cave in Afghanistan and blow a rocket in there and kill all the ISIS. But we have Mexicans over there in the cartel bringing train loads of drugs, and we don't see it. Mexicans don't know where they're at, Americans don't. And I find it to be idiotic. We can't see it. I want the military on the border until we get a wall. The reason I want a wall is for the drugs and the illegal aliens, not just for the idea of keeping them out. We have to keep them out economically. Businesses that hire illegal aliens should be fined $25,000 per illegal alien. We could probably stop them from building the wall if we did that. Because if there's no welfare, if there's no purpose to come to the United States, they won't come. But at the same time, we need to protect ourselves now. You know, when people were talking about being in the National Guard, I was saying we have trained military that needs to train in that area. Let them train in that area. Let them run the tanks up and down there. You know, I'm not against hurting anybody. You know, the last thing I want to do is hurt anybody. But at the same token, this is our country. This is our state. And this has got to be protected by us. Rome fell because everybody didn't care anymore. We have to care. And I see it everywhere I go, is that people don't care. You know, when I get some of the crowds and I say, well, what about, who's going to pay for the debt? Who's going to pay for all this? Your grandkids? Or you think we're too stupid to balance the budget, so we're praying that our grandkids down the road can't? What we're doing is we're setting it up to fail because we won't be here. And we have to tell people that. We're not going to go that way anymore. And I think that we'll survive if we do.
One more thing I want to bring up. This, I firmly believe, would help clean the swamp up there. And nobody talks about it ever. When I worked in the intelligence community, I had to do an SF-86 upgrade every 5 years, and even if I had financial issues, my top secret clearance would be pulled. Yeah, we got a guy who spent 8 years as president, and we can't even see his birth certificate. Why was the clearance not done on the man that's the commander-in-chief, on the whole executive staff? Why the Secretary of State didn't have it? If these people in the FBI, right now, the Mueller investigation and everything, had their financial affairs and everything investigated like the military people do, we wouldn't have half the issues we have.
Well, you know, my thing is that I don't want to go back to Obama to start with. That was a nightmare for me, and I don't feel like going back there. I believe that we have to do certain things. I see, like most everybody here, that all the Democrats and stuff that are not being brought to bear already is bad enough. I mean, Hillary, you see the FBI, Comey, all of these guys should be in jail as far as I'm concerned. But ladies and gentlemen, I have another place I have to get. I don't have, I'm gonna run out of time. I love it that you all came and listened to me. I hope I didn't make everybody go to sleep. And I hope you pray for me and hope that we can pull the country a better way. And I thank y'all very much.
Put out the word when you're gonna be around. We wanna come see you.
Yes, sir, I will.